Good morning. Thank you, Alan. Sincere thanks to you, to M&T, for all that you do in support of this event and the entire community throughout the course of the year. And to Gary, who always just does such a phenomenal job, I think, of laying out in very simple and easy to understand terms what's happening in the macro environment, what's happening locally, just a tremendous amount of information for all of us to try to take advantage of. Usually at this event I speak before Gary, so I get to set the context and then he can share his numbers and his wisdom. Now I have to figure out a way to sound smart after the numbers guy. I also have to compete visually with pie charts and bar graphs, which is a little bit of a challenge. I didn't give up every advantage, however. I never promised to play fair. Meet Benjamin. Yeah, I thought that would work. A year ago, I stood here filled with both excitement and uncertainty about what parenting would be like. I knew it would change my life, I knew it would challenge me, but I had no perspective on how much my son would teach me, how much opportunity to learn and to love and to grow would come my way by the simple change in perspective that being a father requires. Now, Ben is just 9 months old. He's learning to walk. He started with a crawl, then he was pulling himself up on just about everything you can imagine. Then he's scooching along the furniture, and now he's starting to take his first steps. Fact is, those early things, they got him to where he wanted to go. It was slow progress, but it was where he wanted to go. Now, when he sets his sights on something across the room, he stops and thinks. You can literally see the weight of the decision in his eyes, right? Do I put my hand down? Do I crawl across the floor, get there eventually? Or do I risk this walking thing and take the chance that I might fall somewhere along the way? Anyone want to guess what he chooses? He runs. He runs. We each truly have that choice every single day. Last year, we heard from our members and community partners that slow but steady ruled the day. Given all the ebbs and flows of our state and national economies, there's something to be said for growth that keeps our heads above water. Slow progress is better than no progress at all. So do we choose to crawl carefully through the next year, or do we choose to walk, maybe even run, head on towards uncertainty and challenges in order to seize these new opportunities for growth? When we asked you, our members, those of you who do business here every single day, to share your outlook for 2013, we heard a mixed bag. Stories of caution, of optimism, and of risk-taking. 47% of you expect to make capital investments over the course of the next year. 74% expect an increase in sales and revenue. 61% expect an increase in profits, and 76% of you expect to expand your products and services. Our forecasters also told us that they're building on continued opportunities to expand into international markets through exports, something Gary mentioned, or through collaborations and new business partnerships. These opportunities come on top of a healthy dose of uncertainty about the challenges ahead. You told us you face persistent challenges in finding and retaining talent and aligning labor forces with your needs as employers in this region. Looming healthcare challenges. Escalating costs create an added burden that threatens the bottom line for many of you. Shifting government regulations and taxes and the uncertainty and unpredictability and incentives continue to challenge even the most sophisticated businesses. And the overall economic uncertainty that Gary spoke about still weighs heavily on each and every one of your minds. These are your stories. This is what you tell us when you communicate with us about what you're feeling about 2012 and 2013. And frankly, that tracks well to the data that Gary just shared with you about what to expect. Consider for a second some of the macroeconomic trends that persist in this region. Over the last 9 months, we've created 4,700 net new jobs and a total metro area employment of 362,000. It's not bad for Central New York in historical context. But at the same time, as Gary mentioned, our unemployment rate remains unacceptably high. When you dig into those numbers, you see two factors driving that. One, new entrants into the labor market, which generally is a good thing. People feel better, they start looking for work. The second is what the latest census estimates show is perhaps as much as a 3.7% increase in Central New York population between 2010 and 2012, something we haven't seen here in Central New York in decades. Also on the good news, a rise in wages, up 3.1% between 2009 and 2010. But at the same time that median wages were rising, so was our poverty rate, up by more than 8%. 34% of the people in Syracuse now live in poverty, including 1 out of every 4 children, ranking us 6th worst of all metros in the country. Dig further and you find that we attract only $7 in venture capital investment per capita compared to 933. We lag in patent applications. We have higher than average educational attainment, which is good news, but very high workforce misalignment. We have one of the highest concentrations of employment within 3 miles of the center of our city, one of the strongest rates in the entire United States, and it's evidenced by what you see, cranes in the air over downtown Syracuse. Huge and robust growth. But yet at the same time, we have one of the worst rates of residential sprawl in the entire United States. We have 4.52 units of local government for every 10,000 residents right here in central New York, the 9th highest average in the country compared to a national average of 0.47. And maybe most troubling to me as a new father, we graduate 48% of the students out of our city school district. Now, the good news, we are not sitting idly by as a community. For the 2nd year in a row, Governor Cuomo named our region here in central New York, our economic development efforts as one of the best in the state through the Regional Economic Development Council program, a designation that has brought with it more than $331 million to 342 projects across our 12-county region, putting cranes in the air and shovels in the ground and people back to work right here in central New York. That's something that our entire team at CenterState CEO is incredibly proud of. Our Metropolitan Export Initiative last year is putting us on a path to try to double exports from central New York from $3.3 billion to $6.6 billion over 5 years. Our innovation ecosystem that a decade ago was virtually destitute, that 3 years ago was maybe a punchline in many conversations around central New York, is now a point of pride for all of us. New businesses being formed, companies that are coming out of Syracuse University and Lemoyne and others that are getting significant investments and having the opportunity to grow, so much so that there's an effort underway now in central New York to create a $25 million venture fund to support that innovation. We have 2 of the most unique and successful neighborhood revitalization efforts in the country on the near west side and the north side, and downtown Syracuse is experiencing more investment in revitalization than it's seen in decades. And we are doing our best to address this issue of talent that all of you are struggling with, to turn that traditional workforce development model on its head, moving away from a supply-side solution to a demand-driven model that starts every workforce training conversation with a question about aggregated employment, ensuring that we are training people for real jobs with real and ready employers. Now, all in all, we have a lot to be grateful for in 2013. And we have a lot to be optimistic about. Our community is working better together than we have in ages. We are building upon success with more success. But you cannot look at the city's poverty rate and see a sustainable future. And you cannot look at that school graduation rate and see anything other than the faces of the kids that are being left behind, that will never have an opportunity to sit in this room with us and share in this region's economic future. And you can't look at the overall statistics about local government in central New York and see a model of efficiency and effectiveness that we would build from scratch today if we had it to do over again. These and many areas still cry out for improvement, for investment, for modernization and reinvention. Now, I've stood at this podium many times, and I've encouraged us all to be willing to accept a little bit more risk, a word that Gary threw out quite a bit today, to take bold steps that build on our assets and that drag us out of the instant replay economy that Gary described earlier. The fact is, I used to think that bold steps were enough, but then my perspective changed. My son is 9 months old. He can stay in his comfort zone, crawling forward inch by inch, but he wants to run. There's this beautiful, fearless optimism in his eyes. And when I talk to so many of you in conversations, coffee, lunches, dinners, I see the same thing, that same spark, this sense that we as a community and as a region are right on the cusp of reinventing ourselves and our regional economy. There's one thing I've learned from being a father, it's this. We aren't going to go where we want to go by holding onto the couch, and we aren't going to get there by avoiding the big, scary expanse of tough issues between us and our goal. We just have to let go and step into it. I hope that that's what 2013 is all about for Central New York. Thank you.